Greetings Adventurers, this is Lorne, your guild advisor, and welcome to the first of my direct comparisons between the Bottom-Tier Character Tomozaki light novel series and the anime adaptation. This video will cover the differences between the first 4 episodes of the show and the first volume of the light novel. The anime is produced by Studio Project No. 9 under director Shinsuke Yanagi, with series composition done by Fumihiko Shimo, and the character designs done by Akane Yano. The original light novel source material is written by Yuki Yaku with illustrations drawn by Fly. It is published in English by Yen Press. Previously, I made a video solely on the character of Fuka based on the first 6 episodes of the show, and will make some references to that video in this one when I cover the more Fuka-centric parts of episodes 1 through 4. I'll be covering the most notable differences made for the anime adaptation, as going over every minor detail would be unrealistic. At that point, why read the novels? They are told from Tomozaki's first-person point of view, so naturally not all aspects of his narration are kept intact. If you find these videos intriguing, then please check out the light novels to experience the series in a distinctively new way. Anyway, let's start off with episode 1. The episode opens up with Tomozaki playing against his classmate Nakamura in a game of Attack Families, a clear parody of Super Smash Bros. In the light novel, the game is abbreviated as Adafami rather than TAC-FAM, which is used in Funimation subtitles. The scene itself plays out similarly to the light novel, as Tomozaki easily beats Nakamura, who makes up excuses for his loss. Before the two of them have a rematch after swapping characters, Tomozaki actually has a longer rant in the light novels, going so far as to say they should change seats and even clothes so Nakamura couldn't hide behind any excuses at all. It highlights Tomozaki's extreme attitude when it comes to Adafami, while presenting it in a slightly humorous way. As Tomozaki walks home after the match, the anime goes into Tomozaki's monologue about how life is a garbage game. The light novel actually begins with this monologue, but the anime moves it to after the match and makes use of visuals to contrast Tomozaki's current high school life to the other characters who are enjoying themselves at karaoke. Naturally, the monologue is rewritten to be shorter for the anime adaptation, but it keeps the main idea of Tomozaki believing that the game of life is unbalanced, meaning that it was pointless to put in the effort to improve his own, placing the blame on his self-proclaimed bottom-tier stats. Tomozaki isn't really supposed to be a sympathetic character at this point, as it's obvious his views towards life are flawed, but one thing I believe the anime struggles to do is realize how off-putting the script can be at times with the constant use of gaming lingo, combined with either negativity or awkward moments in general. The light novel makes use of this language as well, but includes some humor to balance out the script from feeling too cringy, for lack of a better word. For example, at one point, during the opening monologue, Tomozaki claims he wouldn't look so ugly if the resolution of real life was smaller. It's harder to make out details if you're just a mass of pixels. After Tomozaki defeats No Name, who we now know to be Hinami, in a round of Adafami, Tomozaki accepts her invitation to meet up in real life, not knowing who she really is. One omission the anime makes here is that Tomozaki was trying to be considerate of the distance between the two of them, so he purposely chooses to meet at one station stop away from his house rather than the closest one. This detail comes into play later on in the story, but the anime alters that scene to work around the omission. A nice visual touch the anime includes when Tomozaki tries to defend his viewpoints on life against Hinami during their meeting, is how it shows him playing Adafami in a colorless world, which ends up being a great point of contrast for episode 12 of the anime. Originally, when Tomozaki goes back home, he immediately encounters his mother and sister who question his statement that a friend gave him the health mask he's using to practice expression. The poor guy's family doesn't even believe he has friends. In contrast, the anime has his sister walk in on him as he's smiling in the mirror, which is funny in its own way. And while there are various aspects of this adaptation's direction and overall production that I find ultimately lackluster, I like to call out one of these moments from episode 1. Was this incredibly odd shot of using Hinami's thighs as a framing device to center Tomozaki really necessary? Episode 2 starts with Tomozaki making conversation with Yuzu by asking for a tissue, which leads to Fuka letting a packet to Tomozaki. In the anime, Tomozaki introduces Fuka in a matter-of-fact manner. But in the light novel, he tends to use flowery language whenever he describes Fuka in his narration, such as saying Fuka had a unique, sensitive aura and fairy-like presence, or that her eyes glittered like treasures in a dense jungle. The anime doesn't do much in terms of Tomozaki's inner thoughts or the visuals to showcase this. An extreme example of an anime doing this would be a scene from Hyoka's first episode, when main character Oraki gets absolutely absorbed by Chitanda's presence, and the visuals reflect that. Now, I don't expect Studio Project No. 9 to go all out like Kyoto Animation. They're in completely different leagues when it comes to overall pedigree and production value, but I'd appreciate some extra flair when it comes to Fuka's scenes to showcase how Tomozaki views her. You can find out more about these instances by checking a previous video I made involving Fuka's scenes in the first half of the anime. In the scene where Tomozaki has to awkwardly explain how he made Mimimi laugh, unlike the anime, he has to actually retell the whole joke to Tama, who, like Tomozaki, doesn't understand what Mimimi found so comical. When Tomozaki starts taking Tama's side and revises his statements about girls and empathy, Tama actually starts laughing herself. This all happens before Nakamura's group comes in, and just like in the anime, you can tell Tama is very uncomfortable around them. But her sudden mood shift is much more apparent in the light novel since she was just laughing. An interesting choice the anime made for this scene, and maybe not to its benefit, is have Tomozaki repeat this conversation with Mimimi to the entire group. The light novel jump cuts past this explanation and goes straight to the group's reaction, which would have been preferable to the second-hand embarrassment a viewer may feel from watching Tomozaki having to awkwardly explain himself in the anime. When it comes to the skinship between Tama, Mimimi, and Hinami after class, there were supposed to be other students besides Tomozaki who witnessed the whole thing. Having a peanut gallery reacting to the situation may have made the scene a bit more comical than uncomfortable, which might help explain that Mimimi's antics are a common occurrence, but the camera angles in the anime did not help much either. Later in the anime, Hinami decides to have Tomozaki join a group of students including Mimimi as they leave school together, with this scene differing slightly from the light novel. After Tomozaki unwisely asks about working on butt muscles, rather than continue the scene, the light novel jump cuts to the next morning with Tomozaki apologizing profusely to Hinami, who had to save him during the conversation. Then Tomozaki explains that something odd happened after the majority of the group separated at the station. He ended up walking alone with Mimimi. Unlike the anime, this is something Hinami did not plan, so this initially shocks her. This is where that point that was omitted from episode 1 comes back in. Hinami assumed that Tomozaki lived in a different area from Mimimi because Tomozaki told Hinami to meet at one station away from his house when they were organizing a real-life meeting between Nanashi and No Name. The light novel flashbacks to when Mimimi and Tomozaki are walking together, with the conversation being very similar to the anime version. However, right as Tomozaki and Mimimi part ways, Tomozaki has one last thought in his mind. In his eyes, he felt that Tama was supporting Mimimi rather than the other way around. As someone who went with the flow, perhaps too much, Mimimi needs someone to anchor her down, which is emphasized later on in the series. Episode 3 starts with Tomozaki going to Omiya to spend the day with Hinami as she takes him through various places to transform his appearance and practice his social skills. Rather than Tomozaki having to ask a male employee about the outfit of one of the mannequins, the light novel version of the scene has him ask a female employee, which is naturally more difficult for him. But Hinami plays the part of an excited friend, telling Tomozaki to try on the outfit. After he comes out of the changing room, the employee tells him to take care of his adorable girlfriend. Tomozaki quickly denies such a relationship, and the employee gives off a reply implying that Hinami was too good for him anyway. A sting to Tomozaki's confidence, sure, but including this scene may have balanced out the awkwardness felt from the earlier scene of Tomozaki messing up his initial request. After Tomozaki gets a haircut and comes back home, his sister asks if he's reading a book to de-geekify himself. In the light novel, his sister is lazing on the couch, and Tomozaki points out that she's acting like a slob, which grabs her attention. In the anime adaptation, she spots him in the bathroom with a very similar framing to a scene from episode 1. They actually use the same camera angle and recolor her outfit. I'd question if this was done for production issues, but the shot of his sister in the opening animation is pretty much the scene that was altered from the light novel. Hinami also comments that Tomozaki is acting like a dog with attachment issues by how excited he is to tell her about his sister's remark. Again, a pretty humorous moment omitted from the anime which displays a bit of Hinami's condescending attitude. With the beginning of episode 4, the anime starts off with Yuzu wanting Tomozaki to teach her how to play adafami so she can get closer to Nakamura, which leads to Tomozaki having to go to her house. One particular comedic bit the anime leaves out is when Tomozaki questions why she's so set on learning, before realizing that she likes Nakamura, which he says out loud, much to her embarrassment. Also, they were originally going to practice at Tomozaki's house before he mentions it might be awkward for her because his sister is actually on the same badminton team. This is much to the disbelief of Yuzu, who had a very positive impression of his sister, calling her cheerful while mentioning that Tomozaki was gloomy. It's a bit unfortunate to lose these details that create more of a background for both Yuzu and Tomozaki's sister, while giving a chance for Yuzu to take a jab at Tomozaki after he embarrassed her earlier. Though the anime skips these dialogues, it does include some shuttlecocks which are used in badminton in Yuzu's room, referencing her club affiliation, but I doubt many people outside of light novel readers would be able to pick up this detail. Also, before Tomozaki leaves Yuzu's house, they exchange phone numbers in case she has questions about adafami. Yuzu ends up thanking him via text for the heartfelt talk they had earlier, which is a wholesome scene for Tomozaki that I wish was kept in the anime. When Tomozaki and Hinami are reviewing his encounter with Yuzu, Hinami actually mentions that his midterm goal got closer, implying that his chances of Yuzu being a love interest went up. Naturally, Tomozaki tosses that notion aside, remarking that the reason Yuzu approached him in the first place is because she likes Nakamura. The anime ends up omitting this portion of the conversation, which really paints Hinami in a negative light. Before Tomozaki and Nakamura have their rematch, Nakamura mentions how Tomozaki has been getting friendly with Yuzu. In the light novel, Tomozaki has a humorous inner monologue during this scene, where he calls himself Cupid's arrow since he was helping Yuzu get closer to Nakamura via adafami. After Tomozaki goes off on Erika, and she and her crew leave, there's another amusing moment when Nakamura is comforting Yuzu. In Tomozaki's narration, he says not to touch his student, but then realizes the situation might be good for Yuzu in terms of getting closer to Nakamura, so Tomozaki, Yuzu's adafami master, lets it slide. One nice addition the anime includes is having Misusawa acknowledge Tomozaki by calling him out by name as he says his farewells when he exits the room. In the light novel, Misusawa did not have any dialogue towards Tomozaki in this scene, but adding it shows that Misusawa is starting to gain an interest in him. There seems to be some misunderstandings behind Tomozaki's motivations when he asked Hinami to the movies after not finding the opportunity to ask Fuka. Rather than this being an indication that Tomozaki has romantic feelings towards Hinami, Tomozaki spells out in the light novel that he did it in a spur-of-the-moment type of manner. He wanted to see if he could successfully get results based on the effort he was giving, the effort being a hopefully smooth request. When Hinami agrees to watch a movie, he states he felt the primal elation that comes from working hard and getting the results you want in the real world, plain and simple. Tomozaki was discovering that he was indeed being rewarded for the effort he was putting into the real world. He was ready to start taking the game of life more seriously. That wraps up the more notable differences between the first volume of the light novel and episodes 1 through 4 of the anime. For the most part, the anime adapts the story in a coherent manner, not skipping out on the major story beats. But at times, the script can feel unbalanced, leaving out some of the humor present in the light novel, which, if left included, may have made the opening episodes a bit easier for newcomers to the series to watch without feeling too uncomfortable by Tomozaki's initial awkwardness. Overall, I feel like the anime could have used some better direction in some scenes, but it gets the job done in the sense it keeps most of the major story elements intact. I'll be comparing episodes 5 through 8 with volume 2 for the next video, so look forward to that if you're still interested in seeing the differing aspects between the source material and the anime adaptation. And remember, If you want even more details and want to see Tomozaki's first-person narration, definitely check out the light novels and give them a read. To see more content like this, such as anime and light novel reviews and discussions, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, and join my Discord. This is Lorne, your guild advisor, signing out.
渦を巻く雨雲から差し込んだまっすぐ夏よ